80% of Australians want it legalised, but our politicians don't want to talk about it. We will. Euthanasia, the right for each of us to end our own lives.
Voters in a recent online poll said it was the #1 question they want asked in Parliament. So Greens MP Adam Bandt did just that this week.
80% of Australians believe that terminally ill people who request aid in dying with dignity should be supported. Why doesn't the federal government take over the issue of end-of-life decision-making, which affects every single citizen as well as the medical and nursing professions?
It's not the intention of the Australian government to bring to the Parliament any legislation dealing with voluntary euthanasia.
So, that doesn't seem to put an end to the matter. It's not the intention currently of the government to put an end. Can we sort out this issue once and for all, or do we need to? Let's bring in both sides of the debate.
Dr David Swanton is a euthanasia advocate and joins us from Canberra, while Dr Natasha Michael is a palliative care physician who deals with this almost daily. Good morning to both of you. Now, Dr Swanton,
Good morning.
The public seem to want this. Why isn't this on the national agenda?
Well, it sort of has been on the national agenda since about 1996, when the Northern Territory first enacted its legislation. But then it was overturned by the federal government. And since then, while about 75 to 80% of Australians support voluntary euthanasia, unfortunately the politicians in states, territories and the federal parliament don't. And I suspect that's due to a lot of probably religious influence.
Indeed, although I think also, many physicians oppose it. Dr Michael, why shouldn't we legalise euthanasia?
Well, I think, Andrew, I'm glad this topic has been brought up for public debate like this, because it's imperative and it's important that people understand exactly what we're talking about. So opinion polls don't necessarily exactly evaluate or bring to the forefront what people's true understanding of the issue of euthanasia is. I'll give you a very simple example. I teach medical students from the University of Melbourne. They come to me 8 times a year, and I start my week by discussing the exact same issue, and 80% of them, or 90% of them, would support euthanasia. They then spend a week with me on wards where I care for 800 to 1,000 patients a year with life-limiting illnesses, some with very difficult pain, some with intractable suffering. They watch how, with very meticulous and expert attention to detail, with very good analgesia, with excellent multidisciplinary care, we provide extraordinary care in a very ordinary measure for these people. And these people are discharged home, they live extremely good lives, many of them return to work and return to families. And I ask them the question at the end of the week, when they've now experienced the context in which these decisions are made, do you think we should legislate euthanasia? Do you see this intractable suffering that the media portrays out there, this unrelieved pain that supposedly many Australians suffer from? And the answer is no. So people aren't aware that the Economic Intelligence Unit 2 years ago provided a report on the quality of dying, and Australia ranked second in the world after the United Kingdom in the way that we care for people at the end of life. That's an extraordinary achievement.
Dr Swanton, yes, you've been shaking your head throughout that. What do you say to those claims? Do many people in palliative care go home?
Well, palliative care is very important and we should spend more money on it. But, however, there are many cases where palliative care does not work, and Dr Michael should admit to that. There was a case a couple of years ago of a lady, a 31-year-old writer, Angelique Flowers, who had intestinal cancer. She ended up vomiting up her own faeces. Now, nobody wants to go that way, and palliative care did not work for her, and it does not work for many people. And
so
it
Dr.
is very
Swanton,
arrogant.
I would ask you to clarify.
Sorry, jump in there, Dr Michael.
I would ask you to clarify what your definition of palliative care does not work, because there are very, very clear means in which we can manage somebody with end-stage bowel obstruction. And one of the greatest risks is people do not refer, or people practice out of the scope of their experience. To be able to provide good, high-quality palliative care, your patients need to be able to access these specialists. They need to be able to access them.
Angelique Flowers' quality of life was not improved, and nothing that palliative care did improve her situation. But it's arrogant for other people to say that they know how much pain and suffering she should bear.
If we could just move away from that specific case for a moment, which many of us will be unfamiliar with, and I'm sure that there are, you know, circumstances around that can be argued on both sides of the equation. And just look at the issue more generally. I know we have to deal with the specifics in a sense, because that's what it's about, the dignity of the individual human life. But can I ask you a question, Dr. Swanton? Do you think it is fair to ask medical practitioners to take someone else's life, even if that person wants it?
Perhaps a system could be arranged so that doctors who may not want to assist may not need to assist. But I'm sure there's plenty of doctors out there who can assist. There have been studies showing that many doctors actually do provide, possibly without it actually being ever legal,
well, that makes
extra assistance.
A very interesting point. So, Dr. Michael, you must have people requesting you, or your colleagues must have people requesting that you relieve them once and for all of their suffering and end their lives. How do you respond to those requests?
Well, Andrew, I'm glad you asked me the question. I think it's very, very important to be able to differentiate a true request for euthanasia from a desire or an expression of a desire for death. So people who are very unwell, who feel lonely, who feel abandoned, who feel vulnerable, will sometimes say to me that life is so unbearable that death must be a better option. It is not uncommon for me to have a request or an expression of, I use the term a desire for death because that's what the literature points to. And it's my job then to sit with that person, to sit with a team of people and to find out what exactly is it at this point in time that's making your life so unbearable that death has to be the better option. Now, there is a small minority of people, there always will be a small minority of people who will then go on to proceed to continue to want and request an explicit request for euthanasia. That does not mean that we legislate in this country, because we do not have the means, and we know from the Oregon experience and we know from the Dutch experience, we do not have the means to protect the most vulnerable in the society. Over 50%...
Dr. Michael, what if an articulate, lucid individual such as myself, one day I might want the option of euthanasia? How can you deny me or other individuals that right?
There are many things...
Why do you know more about my life than I do?
There are many things in this society that we legislate for the greater good of society, not for individuals'
This is an individual rights issue, Dr. Michael. This is individuals making decisions about their own lives.
Yes,
I don't tell you how to live your life.
Correct.
So why do you decide to tell people about their lives and how they should make end-of-life decisions?
My job as a palliative care practitioner is to make sure that the correct decisions are made for society as a whole.
Yeah.
Look, the issues of death and dying...
We have to jump in there. We have run out of time, unfortunately, but it is obviously an ongoing debate.
I mean, a debate we could probably extend a bit further next time, starting from the point where we've left off, dealing with those people who have received excellent palliative care, have been through all the therapy they need to go through, fully understand what their choice means for them. How do we deal with those people? Maybe that's when we start the debate next time.
But we do thank both of you, Dr. David Swanton, Dr. Natasha Michael. Thank you both
Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.